Yes, it's been an amazing opportunity being within the Department of Education. As I said in my letter, which was to my constituents, to advise them of my resignation. Over the past 3.5 years, the things that we've managed to do and achieve, and I don't think sometimes that can get missed in amongst everything else that happens within government. But it's been amazing time and working, and I mean I've seen amazing teachers and really high levels of teaching. The staff within the Department of Education, I thank them for their guidance and certainly their hard work. And as I said in my letter, they've gone above and beyond on many occasions, working extremely hard. And I think that people actually need to start saying how important the civil servants, specifically within the Department of Education, have really worked to achieve that.
And obviously some things changed. Recently we had the ministerial change, of course, but you've described concern about policy direction and funding decisions may now be influenced more heavily by those not responsible for the department. How long have you felt that way? When did that start creeping in and making you seriously consider resigning? That's
a really good question, because actually there might be some obvious points to raise, but let's just take, for example, the economic strategy, which wants to attract 15,000 people to the Isle of Man. There is no strategy that I can see on which people are coming, how many are are children, and that really does affect the Department of Education. And I know in the last year we've seen a huge rise in children with AEN, additional needs, and EAL. Sorry, I spit my words out. Children with English as an additional language, and this obviously with no. As far as I can see, those are policy decisions that are being made outside of the department, and the department isn't being considered, and that puts extra pressure on budgets, on funding, and on the schools themselves. And we need to see that plan going forward. So that's a perfect example of policy that's been made outside of the department by those not responsible.
So you feel like a disregard to what the department might have to do, picking up sort of the slack, as it were, not the slack, but you know what I mean, picking up areas that haven't been considered.
I don't think it's a disregard. I think it's just it seems to be ignored, and if we've got budget and financial constraints, there is always going to be a difficulty and a sort of a balance of getting it right. How many people are coming in? They obviously contribute to society paying taxes, so obviously that's a plus point. But it is a very, very difficult balance. We don't know who's coming in, how many people, how many dependents, and what's the strategy behind that. And I think that's what's really important. One of the things that I brought to Tynwald prior to Christmas was a surcharge or a healthcare levy for those outside the common travel area, and that was really important for me, and that the Treasury are going to go away and look at that as a strategy, because you can have somebody coming in from, let's say, I just pick a country, Australia or South Africa, and they may absolutely be working on the Isle of Man, paying taxes and national insurance, but they may have dependents, children, a wife who doesn't, or a husband who doesn't work, and obviously they should, I feel, contribute, so that as a constituent or as a member of the Manx public, you're standing in the hospital, the person standing next to you is contributing to our NHS.
You've mentioned perceived interference by other senior ministers. Would you go as far as to say which ministers? One might assume Treasury if you've got concerns around funding.
So, yes, earlier this month, I can give you a little bit more detail in that. The then Minister Edge had to address the House of Keys regarding the lack of HR support provided to the pool board staff upon request. And it's essential to note that HR falls outside of Minister Edge, the then Minister Edge, and desk's remit and authority, and this responsibility lies with the Cabinet Office. And the Minister was then unfairly put in the position to defend a decision that was not hers to make. furthermore, amidst significant political pressures and, obviously community distress in the southern community, and which put strained relationships between desk and the pool board, which then led to Treasury magically discovering funds to aid the pools. And these policy and funding decisions were influenced by parties, again, not responsible for the department, exacerbating the situation, which in my opinion could have been avoided. And also just generally, I observed this, the lack of collective responsibility that was evident as Julie Edge bore the brunt of blame for the Cabinet Office failure to provide HR support and the Treasury's initial refusal of funding, only later to allocate $350,000 to save the pool.
Mm-hmm. You've praised Minister Edge. You say you acknowledge the collaborative and supportive environment she fostered. Did that come as a shock to you when that strategic midterm change was announced last week?
It didn't come as a shock because I could see the external pressure that was putting on her in the department.
Do you think it was fair?
No, I've clearly said I don't think it was fair. I think it's if this was a strategic move, why was no conversation had with the minister? It was done on the day, on the Wednesday. She was given the information. I think there are. From my perspective, I've worked in the private sector, there are better ways of doing that, and it should have been an open discussion with the person, and I would hope that any minister would appreciate a conversation about a strategic decision about the department, and to be able to given the chance to say perhaps who should come in, perhaps who when it should happen, the timing of it. It was just decided outside of the minister that was.
Of course, your resignation coming a week after, there'll be questions. It's not in protest, I suppose, over the new minister that's been put in place, Daphne Kane?
No, absolutely not. I wish her very much luck. I think that she's very bright. She's, got a real passion for the Isle of Man that has been explained. So no, it's nothing to do with the new current minister. And as I say, I think she will do really well. And there is a great department there that will give her the support to hopefully make the transition as smooth as possible.
Something that I wanted you to clarify, you've explained the experience you've been through, and you seem to know, of course, the challenges faced by the department over the last few years. So why do you believe it's in your best interest of not only yourself but the department for you to part ways?
It's also a very good question. I think that when I can see so much happening, and I had the support, definitely, or I certainly gave the support to the then Minister Julie Edge, I felt like I could fight from within, and I don't think that fight from within is we are able to do that anymore. I think that everybody says, go into the department so that you can make the changes, but I've just seen too many examples now of actually. I didn't need to be in a department to bring the motion for the healthcare levy, the surcharge. So I'm hopefully going to make a difference outside.
The Chief Minister, when we spoke to him earlier this week, did say there was some departmental changes coming up. He said in the next few weeks. Did you see yourself as being one of those, or was that a case of you thought you might eventually be pushed, so go on your own terms? Did that come into the equation at all?
Of course. Absolutely. I think going on your own terms is really important.
So you felt like you might have been pushed had you remained?
Conversations were already, immediately happening that week between the new minister and other ministers. In the old days, you had conversations with the chief minister about your role. So I'm a little bemused as to why these conversations are happening between ministers and members, and there seems to almost be this sort of. I'm not sure why he doesn't want to confront members and have that conversation to them directly, but that's certainly how it happened in the last administration.
There have been questions about Alfred Cannon's administration, of course, and questions about a vote of no confidence. Where would you stand on that?
So I think it's really important that for a vote of no confidence to be successful, you need an alternative government policy, and this needs to be formulated and made evident. So a vote of no confidence could lead to either the appointment of a new chief minister or perhaps a shift in direction. If it wasn't successful, it might actually push the direction hopefully into a better direction. I think it's really important to note right now, obviously recently both the Chamber of Commerce and also very recently, which perhaps you might not know, Lewis, the Isle of Man Medical Society have corresponded with the government to advocate for change in direction. And I believe these organisations are stepping in to provide alternative policies in the absence of clear offerings from politicians. So I intend to address these issues in March Tynwald and beyond, discussing our current position, where we want to go and the strategies required to build that gap and how to get there. And I also encourage, very much so like the Chief Minister, but I also encourage my fellow colleagues to engage in crucial debates such as those concerning the Island Plan and the tax strategy in March Tynwald. And I think it's vital for the Manx public to see their elected representatives, whether they are ministers or backbenchers, demonstrate willingness to listen and act in their best interest.
Do you think that could be a potential turning point for the Cannon administration?
I think I think only if we can provide alternative policy. And now is the time. It's been the time the whole time, but it's really important now, especially with the amount of, as I said before, businesses and organisations which are trying to step in because they're trying to, in my opinion, fill the void.
What are you hearing from constituents in Douglas South?
Mixed, I have to admit. I've been contacted and I welcome any constituent to contact me, but very much not an overwhelming, I would say, not by hundreds. I would say in the 20s, people contacting me to say this is, they don't have faith in the government. What am I going to do about it? And so my answer is that, I need to now stand up and I need to say this is the different policy direction, and hopefully the government should listen.
So those concerns generally seem to be about policy itself rather than the leadership capabilities of the Chief Minister.
I think the actions seem to be well advertised in the press at the moment of the Chief Minister, in the opinion of the public, that he may be making wrong decisions. It's really important. I come from probably a different generation, although I am 50. I come from a different generation where I actually look at social media and I validate it. I think it's really important. I know a lot of my constituents contact me through social media and I see them and I know who they are, and whether they're speaking on different platforms. And I think it's really important. If you don't embrace that as a politician and you don't accept it, whether it's good or bad, I think you're just burying your head. And I think that's a really dangerous place to be.
So just finally then, would you see yourself becoming a member of another department anytime soon?
It's absolutely, I take leadership, in terms of that aspect. I would absolutely step up if I was asked. Take, for example, the Treasury. That would be something that would be really, as you can imagine, not voting for the budget. I would have to absolutely sit down and go through probably a large list of areas which I would want to hopefully try and improve. Whether that would be possible, I don't know. But there are very good departments. I've been in the Department of Infrastructure. I've been in DEFA as well. And it's really valuable experience. And I'm not discouraging members from not being in that by resigning myself. I think it's just important that I took my career in my hands at this time.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Little Manx Radio newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.